Hi, my name's Leah Cook with Sandpaper and Wax Design. I hope everyone's doing really well. But today I am here to show you some Amy Howard products. I absolutely love her paints. I paint in my home with my kids, and I've painted pregnant many times, and I really stand behind her product. It's safe to have indoors, to be around small children or pregnant, and it's safe to have around your pets, and I feel like that's something I can really get behind. But today, anyhow, we're going to talk about Cracked Patina. To go over the products, we'll go over the products. I'm also going to go over a sample board, and then obviously my behemoth piece back here, because I only know how to do one thing one way, is go big or go home. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to clean your piece up. So because this piece I had painted prior, I had to strip this, and it was not fun. I had to use citrus strip, and it's gooey and it's messy and it's disgusting, and it obviously you can see it looks molted, but it's super smooth to the touch right now. So we're gonna have to stain it to get it one nice cohesive color, and we're gonna use that auburn mahogany. But before you do that, you really want to make sure your piece is clean. You don't want any holidays or places where the stain didn't adhere, and then it's heaven forbid you had cracking with your cracked patina and it looks like plywood underneath. So we are going to go ahead and I'm going to really clean this piece down. Whew, I worked up a sweat there. Glad you didn't have to watch that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to work with our gel stain first. So I'm using Amy Howard's Auburn Mahogany, and we're just gonna go ahead and stir that up. So you can vary your stain. You can lighten it up, you can keep it nice and dark. For this piece, because it's a little molted looking, I am gonna go full strength. It just depends on what kind of look you're going for. I always say, do practice samples. Just do it, because at least you know what you're gonna get. You know, I'll talk about this piece. It was a very cool headboard, still really is. And I wanted to make it a bench, and I'm from Palm Beach. I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, and everything here is white and light and bright. And this bench did not want to be white, bright, and light. I tried a sage green and white, and it just did not work. This bench wants to be dark, and I'm gonna love it because I can put my name on it and I can be happy with the work I've done. A lot of times, you know, we get so concerned about what's selling and what's the latest trend color, and I love that too, but some pieces just got to be classic. So we are gonna go black. All right, so that's pretty good stirred up. And again, we're gonna go full strength. I like to apply my stain with sponge brushes. I do have a couple different sizes. As you can see, there's detail, so smaller brush, more detail. So I'm gonna brown mahogany this whole bench, and we're gonna have to let that dry. Now, depending on your area, is going to depend on how long you need it to dry. So you want it to, when you touch it, it is no longer tacky or sticky or wet. For me here in South Florida, it's I'll probably let it sit overnight just to be sure. So go ahead, and you want to offload. You don't want to do a ton. We're going to start in a corner. So I want to mention, if you are applying gel stain to go under a cracked patina, and you're going to do the finish we're going to do today, I wouldn't worry about so much the perfectness of putting on the gel stain as if you were finishing a top. Now, if you're finishing a top, that's what everyone's going to see. You're going to want to use you're either going to use a really nice staining brush with a nice fine edge on it and really make that gel stain perfect. But because we're using this under the the Cracked Patina, and we're looking for a finish that's going to look like this. You're not gonna see a ton of grain. Here it is, voila, with some stain on it, and it's looking better, it's looking more cohesive. Again, the thing that we're concerned about here, that this is not the final coat, this is not the top coat, it's not being left unfinished, it's going to be layered. So when you use Cracked Patina, it is like an Oreo cookie. So you got your base, you got your one side of the Oreo cookie, the patina is the that creamy filling, and then your paint on the top. So it's always got to be between two layers. So if you just wanted to do a single layer of paint and you wanted the wood to show through, the best thing you're going to do is you're going to stain with your gel stain. You're going to put the Cracked Patina over it, and then your one step, whatever you decide, however you want to do this. But for today, we are going to go ahead and apply our Cracked Patina. Ooh, crazy hair. We're going to do the Cracked Patina. I'm going to show you how to mix it up, how to apply it, and we're gonna have to let that dry as well. So everything is in kind of stages. It's nice because I can come back and I can work on other pieces or take care of other children while I am doing multiple projects. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we're doing. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and mix our Cracked Patina. Remember, Cracked Patina is going to make that kind of cracked, literally Cracked Patina look on your paint. It's gonna break it out a little bit. So the thicker the crack, we want to do a small crack, so we want thinner patina. The thicker the crack, the bigger the alligator crack was, like that leathering is almost gonna look. And I'll remind you again, we are trying to achieve this look. We also want to apply the Cracked Patina in a thin layer. We don't want to make it too thick. It really will change the way it looks. It's also going to take longer to dry. So nice thin layer. Then I'm going to do a 50-50 mix. So I'm going to shake up our patina. Excuse those stained fingers from the stain. I did wear gloves part of the time. I'm going to check them off. All right. So 50-50. You can kind of eyeball it. I actually urge you to play with this Cracked Patina. I think doing samples and testing to see different texture or how big of a crack you actually want. But for this one, I do 50-50, kind of eyeball. Always write down your recipes too. You know, if you didn't make enough in the first, look at me. If you didn't make enough the first time around, you'll have to make more. So you want to make sure you know your ratios. And when you pour this stuff out, it has the consistency of a honey. It's really nice and thick, but we're gonna water this down. You don't want it too runny because we're gonna also have to apply it on vertical surfaces. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more. Cracked Patina, the hotter it is, the more runny it is. The colder it is, obviously, the more gel. Here in Florida, you will never have to worry about it getting too thick for the most part, even on a day like today. So, all right, and see, it's just a nice consistency. Okay, could I have picked any more awkward piece to teach you guys? But I love this bench, and I think it's gonna look really spectacular with this finish, and I really wanted to share it with you, so just bear with me. This is my first video. Okay, so we've got your Cracked Patina all mixed up, and we're going to offload our brush. It means we don't want a ton, we don't want it to run, and we'll start in a corner and go with the grain of the wood. Nice even coat. You don't want to, once it starts to dry, let it go. Make sure we don't get any drips. If you need to, thicken it up just a little bit more if it's too runny. But you want a complete coat all over. No holidays. So I'm already thinking about where people would have continually touched on this bench and where I think I'd like to see the paint actually come off, and I'll show you how to do that once it's dry. But for the most part, I want a really nice, beautiful textured finish, but I also want it, I want it pretty smooth. All right, and we're back. So our bench is now dry to the touch. It actually only took about 5 hours. It's been pretty dry here, not humid in South Florida. So that's usually faster than normal. Usually I wait overnight, but right now we are looking really good. Now, if you get really close, you can see that I do have maybe a couple drips, like right around there. So we're gonna take 220 grit sandpaper and we're gonna lightly sand any really raised areas, just to get off some of that dust. Just give it a quick wipe. Next, we are going to apply our first coat of paint, and I'm going to use Amy Howard's black one-step paint. You can shake it up or stir it up, and we're going to pour it into a container. For this, we are going to wear a glove. I recommend you wear a glove for this because we are not going to use a chip brush. We're actually going to use our seawool sponge. So seawool sponge in their natural state are not hard like this. They're typically wet. So go ahead and submerge that in some water and then really squeeze out. Oh, this was a milk paint. I have another one. Here we go. So here's my other seawool. You want to use the rounder side. You don't want to get that nice sharp edge, even though sometimes it calls for it, but you want to use that nice round. And we want a really nice smooth, and I don't want as much crack and agitating. So for this finish, you're going to dunk it into the paint, and then I want you to offload a little bit onto that side. Now you want to be careful that we don't double process. So double processing means to overwork the material, causing clumps or your finish to not be as smooth as what we're trying to do. So I start in a corner, especially when it's a big piece. I don't want to start in the middle, especially if I need to adjust or if I need to add water to the paint if it's too thick. So we're going to go to this corner over here, and we're just going to, there. Now, Cracked Patina is going to start doing its magic pretty much right away. So try not to go over it too many times because it's going to start pulling and doing what it's meant to do. So we're just going to sponge on the surface. Okay, so I've reached a point where I'm at the spindles. Everything is pretty much done, not the centerpiece. And I didn't do the spindle here because I want to show you how I really wanted a full coverage with this Cracked Patina. I wasn't really looking for a lot of pulling, but I feel like this piece needs to be a little chippy. And so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to pull from this knob, from the spindle in places where I feel like would have been touched multiple times, even if this finish was perfect. So you're going to go ahead. And what's really neat, because I'll show you what I did on the other side. We're going to go ahead and load up your, also when you are sponging, there might be a time when this sponge starts to get really foamy, a little too foamy. You can go ahead and switch it out, or you can give it a rinse, squeeze it all out again, and then start back. But I felt like it was just starting to get super, super foamy, and I wasn't really liking all the foam that was starting to pile up on the finish. So I went ahead and rinsed out my sponge and kind of started fresh again, and it did a really nice job. Also, you're going to notice after a while it gets really, really mushy, and that's why maybe it's also best to go ahead and change out for a new sponge. So as this goes ahead and starts coming to tack a little bit, like a little tacky, you're going to take your palm and see, ooh la la. This is not a good project for someone who doesn't want to get dirty. Maybe we do a different one for you. But you're going to pull off with your hands where that probably would have touched a couple times. And you can see that stain underneath. And don't worry about the texture, because we can come back with some sandpaper and kind of even it out. But I feel like this is something that someone would have put their hand on repetitively to stand up if this was a real bench that lasted forever. So just kind of pulling off in spots. And that's it. I don't really want to do too much. I just want a little bit of wear. I want to see a little bit of that, and you'll see it. How, I don't know if you can see that. That's that cracked patina right there. It's kind of crazy looking. But here we're going to take our 220 grit sandpaper, and we're just going to lightly bring down, because we don't want super rough patches. We want this finish to feel like it's been part of this piece for ages. What I like to do is close your eyes and see what feels inconsistent with the rest of this finish, and then adjust. Black paint, we are going to mix a one part glazed over, and 1 part paint. So here's that glazed over. You can make glazes in any color you can imagine. This is just a really cool product. If you want to, accent any colors, you want to deepen them, you want to add a little depth, is definitely a great product to have. And for most of my glazes, it's a 1:1:1. But there are times where it does call for a different ratio, and you can play with those. So I definitely recommend this product, glazed over, especially if you're wanting to add that dimension to, a cream or a blue, and maybe make that blue, add a little hint of brown to it to give it that more vintage look. But in this case, we're going black on black. And I think this is going to add more depth to the black already. It's going to fill in a little bit of where that cracked patina is really kind of cracked a little more than I wanted. And you'll see, we'll try to bring it up as close as possible. For this kind of finish, I wish you could feel it. It is just magnificent. It's not going to be that cracked all over alligator feel. It's actually going to be really smooth by the time we're done. So really smooth but cracked finish, really small cracking, almost like a French crack. So here we go. We're going to do one step paint, 1 part water. And then with our glazed over, open that up. And you want to give it a good stir. As you can see, it's an opaque, kind of translucent, but you really want to get all of that stirred up. I wouldn't shake this. I'd actually really stir it so you can see that. Let's thoroughly mixed. And then we're going to add our glaze. I might run out of space for this cup. That's okay. And then you must wear gloves or you will look like this. And people think you're homeless when they see your hands. Or they, especially where I live here in Palm Beach, it's just so funny. People see me, I'm covered in paint all the time, paint in my hair. That's why I started wearing these hair bands. I was always pushing my hair back and I'd have all different colors in my hair. Gloves on, sponge ready, and we are going to just go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and put ourselves into that. Offload a little bit. I like to have a piece of paper where I can kind of offload sometimes and unload my sponge. And again, start in a corner. Start to feel your way about this, especially if it's the first time you're doing this. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some practice, and just start sponging on, just like how you applied that one-step coat. Okay, just going over. And it looks foamy, but it's not. It will dry. Now, after a while, sometimes these sponges feel like you've lost a lot of elasticity in the sponge, and that's okay. Maybe have a couple with you and change them out. Go rinse them out and start back over again with the, not back over again on your piece, but start back over with the sponge. Hey there. Excuse me. All right, this is it. We're in the home stretch. So you probably noticed some stuff has changed on this bench, and it sure has. So here I decided I didn't like the wood. I felt like everybody does a wood colored bench, and I wanted to do something a little more creative. And I was inspired by this French wrought iron chandelier that I purchased by Paul Kiss. He was based in Paris designing chandeliers in the 1920s. And I have this piece that I'm going to photograph with it, and it'll be listed as well, but really gorgeous. And it's black wrought iron, and it has all this gorgeous, ornate detailing on it, and I'll show you that too at the end. But I really fell in love with the damask stencil, and I thought, how beautiful would that be to add just a little color. I decided I didn't want to gild. I will gild with you guys at some point, I promise, and we'll have a good laugh. But I really didn't want to take away, and I didn't want to add too much, so I felt that this was actually a really cool addition. And I found these gorgeous scrolled hinges, top hinges, strap hinges on Etsy, and I think they're fantastic. The last part that we're going to do to make that really smooth surface and even more depth, if you can start to see how it looks worn and distressed, but it is so smooth to the touch, which I think is so spectacular. I wish you guys were here to touch it. But so let's go ahead and talk about how to make a wax. We're going to do our custom wax. So we're going to need our vintage wood Mind Your Own Beeswax, really nice squeezable paste. And we're going to use, again, Amy Howard's Black One Step paint. You'll need a stir stick to mix this mixture up, and a natural bristle chip brush. If this is a new brush for you, go ahead and give a pull. You don't want to get bristles in your wax and then it hardens, and then to get that out you're going to have to use a razor blade, and then it's going to mar your finish. So go ahead and pull all those bristles out. Make sure you could use a rag, but on big surfaces I like to use a brush. I even like to use a round brush, but I'm currently using it on another project, so let's just use this one for now. So you're going to do a squirt of wax. You want to make enough because we're not coating it in wax, but if you need more, You don't want to have to make more. Besides, this stuff is really, it'll last. You can go ahead and put it in an airtight container and keep it and use it for a later date. Again, give your paint a good shake or a stir if you haven't used it, but we just recently have used this. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and just put in a little bit, not a lot, just enough to tint it. Remember, we're not making another paint, we're doing a wax, we're just tinting. And we're gonna get that really nice and stirred up. I love waxes. I think they're so neat. I think it's great that you can make all these different colors and take your project to that next level. All right, and then seal and protect your project. So if Cracked Patina should not be outside. You know, if it gets wet, it's gonna continue to do its thing because it never really dries. So recommend that any piece that does have Cracked Patina on it, you know, you could do a wax, you could do a matte sealer on it and then do a wax if you wanted to give it that much more depth. But recommendation for Cracked Patina, really should keep it inside. You could, but it's gonna have to be like a heavy duty spar varnish, and you might lose that texture and that the subtleness that we're trying to achieve with this finish. So, because the spar varnish is going to make your project piece usually pretty darn shiny, and it takes away, it's a top coat, so you don't feel that all that work we just did would be for nothing. So once we've had it all mixed, we want to offload our brush. That means you put wax on it and you want to actually take it off. Make sure see how it's gotten into all the bristles. Remember, we're not painting another layer. We're just lightly kissing and adding that protective layer to our project piece. All right, so just nice and light, like butterfly kisses. You are going to just see how my wrist is constantly moving as it goes over your piece. It's going to just add that gorgeous protective layer. I want to say a big thank you to my inner circle and old world finishing friends. You guys have been such an amazing group of ladies. And if you're not part of the inner circle or part of even old world finishing, I encourage you to join. These are some amazing artists in this group, and not only are you learning new projects and new types of finishes, you are making some really great friends and talk about an amazing support system, especially since they have been my calming in the middle of this COVID business in my house. So a big shout out to Christy, love you girl, and all my other Catherine, thank you, and my prayer warriors. I do appreciate all your prayers for my little ones who are sleeping right now. Okay, this is it. Our last thing we have to do, we are going to go ahead, a lint-free cloth, clean preferably, and we're going to buff our piece. I don't want it to be too shiny, so I'm going to just minimal buff it. And this piece, yeah, it's dry. It's not completely, it won't cure. It's going to take time to cure. But while it's still, we're just going to go. I'm not left-handed, so I need to switch. I'm just going to buff lightly. So I want the spindles to look a little shinier. I want them to look like they've been touched and touched and touched. So I am going to buff those a little bit more than I would the rest of the bench. Prepared me to do this bench. This is a chandelier by Paul Kiss. And look at that gorgeous detail. So this really, it's the same time period, this piece. And so I wanted to keep it in that similar family. This is a French wrought iron hand-forged chandelier, and it has a huge base that goes with it. It goes all the way up. That will be photographed, and I ordered the replacement glasses that are actually really cool Tiffany blue. So yeah, this is what made me think of the Damas and the black and white, very French piece. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate you stopping by to learn about Cracked Patina. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for sharing my first video.